My friend, you who are listening now, this is for you, not by accident, not by chance. You've carried much. You've walked through storms not of your own making. You've held up the sky for others while your own world felt like it was caving in. You've smiled while your soul wept. You've kept walking when your legs trembled. You've whispered prayers when no one saw, and sometimes no words came at all. He understands your weariness not as an idea, not as a theological concept, not as a distant king looking down from a lofty throne. He understands it because he entered into it. He clothed himself in the same flesh that tires, the same bones that ache, the same soul that grows heavy under the burdens of life. The infinite wrapped himself in finiteness. The one who spoke the stars into place chose to walk dusty roads, chose to feel the press of fatigue, the sting of rejection, the hollow echo of loneliness. He did not have to, but he chose to, so that you would never again say, "Oh, no one understands," because now someone does, perfectly. When you wake up with a heaviness you can't name, when you walk through your day as if under a weight, no one else sees, when your heart is crying, but your mouth has no words, he understands. When your strength is gone, but the responsibilities remain, when your soul whispers, "I can't do this anymore," he understands, not from theory, but from experience. He who holds all power allowed himself to become weak. He who dwells in glory chose to dwell among pain. He who is above time stepped into it, to be tired, to be tempted, to weep, to sweat drops of blood in a garden where no comfort came, and he did it so you would know. You are not alone. He understands the weariness of carrying things no one else knows about. The things you've been holding for years, the prayers unanswered, the hopes deferred, the dreams that seem to slip further with every passing day. He understands the weariness of being strong for everyone else, while inside you feel like you're breaking. He knows what it is to stand among people and still feel isolated. He knows the sting of betrayal, the weight of sorrow, the ache of being misunderstood. He knows because he lived it. He didn't have to, but he chose to. Not only your eternity, but your exhaustion. You see, it wasn't just on the cross that he bore your pain. It was every step before the cross. Every mile he walked, every lonely night, every groan that rose from his spirit, he carried it all, that he might fully identify with you. Scripture says he grew weary from the journey and sat by the well. Think about that. The one who created the oceans needed to sit down. He didn't pretend to be tired. He was tired. He didn't fake weakness. He felt it. And in that moment, he chose to meet a broken woman who had been cast aside by society. In his weariness, he brought healing to someone else's soul. And that is the kind of Savior he is. He enters into your weakness not only to empathize, but to redeem it. He understands the tiredness that isn't fixed by sleep. The kind that sleep can't touch because it's not the body that's tired. It's the soul. The kind that comes from holding things together for too long, from trying to be okay when you're not, from enduring when everything in you wants to collapse. The kind of tired that sits deep in your chest and makes even breathing feel heavy. And he doesn't dismiss that tiredness. He doesn't tell you to simply push through. He doesn't rebuke you for it. Instead, he meets you in it. He becomes your strength when you have none left. He understands the kind of tired that comes from spiritual warfare, the battles no one else sees, the thoughts that assail you in the quiet, the temptations that weigh on you, the lies that whisper you are not enough, not worthy, not loved. He knows the toll that kind of warfare takes. And he stands with you in it, not as a general barking commands from a safe distance, but as a warrior who has been in the trenches, as one who was tempted in every way yet without sin, as one who wrestled in prayer until his sweat became blood. He knows the cost of staying faithful when everything inside you feels faint. He understands the tiredness of delay, the long waiting, the silence of heaven, the prayers that seem to rise into a void. He knows the agony of waiting on God. He waited 30 years for his ministry to begin. He waited in the wilderness. He waited in the garden. He waited on the cross. He knows the patience that feels like pain. And yet, he endured so that you might be strengthened by the knowledge that he is not only God above your tiredness, but God within it. Every sigh, every tear, every unspoken word, he knows, he holds them. And he walks with you through every step of it. Your tiredness is not a sign of failure. It is not proof that you've done something wrong. It is not weakness in the eyes of God. In the economy of heaven, the moments when you feel like you can no longer go on are not the end. They are often the beginning of something sacred. The breaking point is not always the collapse. Sometimes it is the opening. It is the place where the old is stripped away and the new is born. It is where your strength ends and his strength begins. The tiredness you feel, the deep soul weariness, is not random. It is not meaningless. It is a doorway, a holy threshold. And on the other side of it is something God is preparing, something he is doing in you that could not be done in ease and comfort or in the absence of struggle. There is a mystery to God's workings. He often chooses the desert before the promised land, the silence before the song, the cross before the resurrection. He allows the soul to be emptied so it can be filled anew. And it is in the place of emptiness, of exhaustion, that he meets his people most intimately. The prophet Elijah stood on Mount Carmel calling down fire from heaven. A great victory, a moment of triumph. But not long after, he was running into the wilderness, collapsing under a tree, begging for death. Not because he stopped believing, but because he was tired. He had nothing left. And what did God do? He didn't scold him. He didn't rebuke him for being weary. He sent an angel to feed him, to let him rest, and then gently led him to the mountain, not to confront, but to whisper. Because God understood that the tiredness wasn't the end of Elijah's calling. It was the turning point. This is how God works. He doesn't discard you when you're weary. He doesn't push you aside when you can't go further. Instead, he invites you to collapse into his arms. He draws near when you draw breathless. The very place you are tempted to think disqualifies you, the place of weakness, is the place God chooses to show his glory. Not in the strength of the vessel, but in the power of what is poured through it. He waits for the moment when you stop striving, stop trying to perform, stop carrying what was never yours to carry alone, because it's there, in that sacred surrender, that he begins to reshape you. We often think we have to be strong for God to use us, that we have to have it all together. But the story of Scripture is the story of people who came to the end of themselves and found God waiting. Jacob wrestled until he was limping. Moses broke under the weight of leading. David cried out in caves, calling himself forgotten. Paul despaired even of life. And yet in every case it was that very breaking, that very tiredness that God used to reveal something deeper, a new dependency, a new intimacy, a new power that didn't come from their own will but from God's Spirit. The tiredness that you carry is not a wall, but a passage. It is not the edge of your story, but the threshold of a new chapter. When you feel like everything is being stripped away, perhaps it is because he is removing the things that can't stay where he's taking you. When you feel like you're running on empty, maybe it's because he's about to pour something into you that you've never had before. The oil often comes after the crushing. The wine flows after the pressing. The dawn only breaks after the longest night. God does not waste your tiredness. He does not overlook your weariness. He collects every sigh, every moment you choose to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And those moments are sacred. They are offerings. They are seeds. The kind that are buried in darkness and silence in unseen places. Until one day they rise, not by your effort, not by your will, but by his breath. You may think your tiredness is a problem to be fixed, a flaw to be hidden, a burden to be ashamed of. But heaven sees it differently. Heaven sees it as the place where your dependency deepens, where your surrender becomes real, where your roots grow down instead of out. Yeah. And when the roots go deep, the fruit will one day grow wide. But not before. Never before. There is a profound truth that you must understand. When you are most weary, most broken, most overwhelmed by the weight of your life, that is often the moment God is closest to you. It's a paradox, isn't it? That in our weakness, he is most present. You feel abandoned, distant, as if the heavens are silent and the answers seem so far away. Yet, in the very place of weariness, God draws near to you. When you are depleted, when you feel like you have no strength left to take another step, that is when he steps in, not to scold, not to push you further, but to hold you in his arms. It is not in the moments of power and self-sufficiency that you experience the nearness of God. It is when you are weary, when you are at your breaking point, when you are on the edge of yourself, that he is right there beside you, whispering, I am with you. You are not alone. The psalmist understood this. In the darkest times, he would call out to the Lord, not in self-sufficiency, not pretending to have it all together, but in the raw honesty of his soul's cry. He would say, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? These words came from a heart that felt abandoned, from a soul that was weary of waiting. And yet, Those very cries were an invitation for God to reveal himself in the midst of the pain. You see, it is not in the absence of tiredness that you find God. It is in the middle of it. It is in the middle of it. The truth is, God doesn't wait for you to have it all figured out, for you to have it all under control, for you to be strong enough to handle things. He comes when you are weak, when you are at the end of yourself, when you have nothing left to give. He is the God who is nearest to the brokenhearted, closest to the contrite. It's not in your strength, but in your surrender that he draws close. When your soul feels like it has no breath left to breathe, he is the very air that fills your lungs. When your heart feels like it is on the verge of giving up, he is the one who strengthens you. And this is not just a comforting thought or an abstract theological truth. This is the reality of who God is. He comes not from a place of distance, but from a place of intimacy. He doesn't look at your weariness and turn away in disappointment, but rather he looks at you with love and compassion. He is present when you are at your lowest. He is present when the weight of life becomes unbearable. His presence is not a distant promise. It is an immediate reality. His nearness is not just a hope for the future, but a tangible comfort in the present. And it is in that nearness that you are able to find the strength to keep going. When you feel unseen, when you feel unheard, when you feel like no one knows the burden you are carrying, you must remember this. He knows. He knows you in a way that no one else does. He knows your deepest fears, your secret sorrows, your unspoken pain. And he does not walk away. He does not say, pull yourself together and come back when you are strong enough. Instead, he draws near. He embraces you. He carries you when you cannot carry yourself. His nearness doesn't depend on your strength. It doesn't depend on your ability to fix yourself or get things right. His nearness is simply his presence with you in the middle of it all. This is not to say that weariness will be instantly removed. That tiredness will always be erased in an instant. It doesn't mean that your troubles will vanish or that life will become easier. But it does mean that in your weariness, in your brokenness, in your moments of deepest exhaustion, you are not alone. God is right there with you, and his presence is the strength you need to keep moving forward. The Apostle Paul wrote of this very thing when he spoke of his own weakness. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Paul had to come to the realization that God's strength is most powerfully displayed in the place of our weakness. God's power is not seen in your ability to handle everything on your own, but in your willingness to lean on him when you have nothing left to give. And that is when his power is made perfect. That is when his strength is most evident in your life. So in your moments of weariness, remember this truth. God is near. He is not distant. He is not indifferent to your pain. He is right there, holding you in his embrace, lifting you when you are too weak to stand. And it is in his nearness that you find the strength to keep going. Not because you are strong enough, but because he is. Not because you can handle everything on your own, but because he will carry you through. You are never alone in your weariness. He is with you, and that is enough. Strength is not found in your ability to keep going in your own power. It is not about pushing through every obstacle, every challenge, every weariness on your own. True strength is found in waiting, in leaning on the one who is the source of all power, in placing your trust in him when everything inside you wants to collapse. When you feel like you have nothing left, when your resources are drained, when your energy is spent, this is the moment of strength. The strength you need does not come from your own abilities, but from the one who never tires, who never grows weary, who gives power to the faint and strength to the weak. Waiting on God doesn't mean passively sitting and doing nothing. It is not the absence of action, but the presence of trust. It is the act of surrendering your striving and your self-effort and instead resting in the promise that he will carry you through. Waiting on God is the acknowledgement that you cannot do it on your own, that you need his strength, his guidance, his provision, his provision. It is the heart that says, I can't do this, but I trust that you will. This kind of waiting is not a passive resignation, but an active choice to place your hope in God and in his timing. It is the confidence that, in his perfect timing, he will renew your strength and make you able to endure what you cannot on your own. There is a deep mystery in this. Waiting on God often feels like an uncomfortable place to be. It feels like an empty space where nothing is happening, where progress is slow or seemingly non-existent. It feels like a space where you are left in the tension between where you are and where you hope to be. But this is the place where God does some of his most profound work in us. It is in the waiting that he deepens our faith. It is in the waiting that he teaches us to trust in his promises, to rely not on our own understanding, but on his faithfulness. The waiting period is not wasted time. It is a time of preparation, a time when he is equipping us for what is to come. In the waiting, we are being refined. We are being shaped into the people he has called us to be. Our reliance on him is being tested. Our dependence on his grace is being strengthened. It is in those moments of weariness and waiting that we learn to see the truth that our strength is not our own, but his. When we come to the end of our resources, when we can no longer rely on our own ability to keep going, we are in the place where God can pour out his strength into us. It is in this place of surrender that his power becomes most evident in our lives. The Apostle Paul understood this. He wrote, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.'" Paul learned that it was in his weakness that God's power was most clearly revealed. It was when he had nothing left to give that God's strength was made perfect. This kind of waiting requires patience, trust, and an open heart. It is not easy. It is not what we naturally want to do. We want answers now. We want progress now. We want relief now. But God's timing is not our timing. His ways are not our ways. And in his perfect timing, he renews our strength. He lifts us up when we are weary, and he gives us the grace to endure when we cannot go on in our own power. Waiting on God means trusting in his timing, knowing that he will come through for us, even when it feels like nothing is happening. It means having confidence that, in the waiting, he is doing a deep work in our hearts, preparing us for the future he has for us. This process of waiting and receiving his strength is not just about enduring hardships. It is about transformation. As we wait on God, we are not just waiting for our circumstances to change. We are being changed. Our hearts are being aligned with his will. Our desires are being purified. Our vision is being sharpened. When we wait on God, we are not just waiting for the trials to end. We are waiting for the moment when his power is revealed in our lives in a way that brings glory to him. Glory to him. And in that process, we are made stronger, not because of our own strength, but because of his. Waiting on God is also an act of worship. It is a declaration that he is faithful, that he is good, that his promises are true, even when the circumstances around us suggest otherwise. It is in the waiting that we learn to trust, to rest, and to praise God for who he is, even when we cannot see the way forward. And as we wait, as we lean into his presence, we find that our strength is renewed, not in our own efforts, but in his power that never runs out. The more we wait on him, the more we experience his strength, and the more we become the people he has called us to be. You have faced battles that no one else could see. You've carried burdens that seemed too heavy for your heart to bear. There have been moments when you wondered if anyone truly understood the weight you were carrying. You may have cried in the quiet places, pleading for strength, for relief, for understanding. And yet, even in those moments, God saw every tear, every sigh, every silent prayer. He knew the depth of your struggle, and he was with you even when you felt alone. And here's the truth. While you felt the weight of your weariness, you were not forgotten. God is faithful, and he will not let your weariness be the final word in your life. When you are tired, it can feel as though the journey is too long and the path too steep. But in the midst of that fatigue, God's presence is still your refuge. The weariness you feel is not a sign of defeat, nor is it the end of the road. It's a place of encounter with the divine. In those moments when you are most exhausted, God is closest to you. He knows the weariness of your soul, the exhaustion of your spirit, and he draws near with love and mercy. When you are worn out and feel like you've run out of strength, you are positioned for something profound to take place. In those tired moments, God does not give you a list of things to do. He doesn't point you toward tasks to perform, to earn his strength. Instead, he invites you into his presence, where his strength becomes your strength, where his rest becomes your peace. The weariness you carry does not disqualify you. It does not make you less worthy of his love. Instead, it is in your weariness that he will fill you God does not wait for you to be strong before he meets you. He meets you in your weakness, in your fragility, in your tiredness. And in that moment, he breathes life into you. This is not a strength that comes from within you, but from the Spirit of God himself. It is his supernatural strength that enables you to rise again. This is the power that is made perfect in weakness, as Paul described in his letters. It is the divine strength that you cannot manufacture on your own. And it is the kind of strength that turns your greatest exhaustion into a source of spiritual renewal. It's a strength that transforms your tiredness into worship. When you feel like you can no longer continue, God in his grace gives you the ability to keep going. It's important to understand that God does not leave you to suffer in silence. He knows the deep fatigue that comes from carrying the weight of life, and he doesn't disregard it. He doesn't say, just push through. No, he comes alongside you and says, let me carry that burden with you. Jesus himself experienced the weight of human weariness. He knew what it was like to be drained, to feel the pressure of the world, to be pressed by the demands of life. And yet in that very place of his own fatigue, he invited others to come to him for rest. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This promise is not just for a future day, but for today. His rest is available to you right now, in the middle of your struggles. Even when your heart feels heavy, even when the journey seems too long, God is at work. He doesn't waste your weariness, he uses it. It's in the moments of exhaustion that he shapes you. It's in the moments of weakness that his strength is poured out. You may not see it immediately, and it may not look like what you expect, but God is at work even in your tiredness. Just as he formed the earth through his word, he is shaping you through his presence. And in that shaping, you are being made stronger. His presence refines you, his spirit sustains you, and his grace renews you. Sometimes the greatest transformation comes not in the moments of power, but in the moments of apparent defeat. When you think you have nothing left, God shows up with more than enough. When you think your strength is gone, he gives you his strength. This divine exchange is a beautiful mystery. You come to the end of yourself, and he is there to fill the gap. His grace is sufficient. His power is made perfect in your weakness, and his love is unending. So when you are tired, when you are worn out and can barely take another step, don't allow yourself to believe that this is where your journey ends. Don't let the weariness define you. Instead, let it draw you closer to God. Let it drive you into his presence, where he will renew your strength and transform your soul. Your tiredness is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a deeper encounter with the one who loves you. And in that encounter, you will find the strength to keep going. Not because of anything you have done, but because of what he has done for you. There are times in life when it feels like the weight of everything is on your shoulders. The responsibilities pile up, the challenges grow heavier, and your energy seems to fade away with each passing day. It's as though the exhaustion is more than physical. It seeps deep into your soul, leaving you feeling drained, empty, and at times, hopeless. In these moments, it's easy to believe that you are alone in your struggle, that no one truly understands what you're going through, and that perhaps you've reached the end of your capacity. But the truth is, God knows exactly where you are. He sees your weariness, he understands your pain, and he has a plan for your renewal. When you feel like you can't go on, when you feel like the road is too long and the burden too heavy, God doesn't look at you with disappointment or frustration. He doesn't tell you to just push through or to get back up on your own strength. Instead, he comes near. He enters into your weariness, and in his loving compassion, he offers something far greater than self-effort or human strength. He offers his rest. The story of God's people is not one of unbroken strength, but one of struggle, weakness, and renewal. The great heroes of faith didn't face life with unshakable resolve or endless energy. They, too, grew weary, felt overwhelmed, and even questioned God's timing. David cried out to God from the depths of his exhaustion. Elijah fled into the wilderness, begging for death, exhausted from his battles. Even Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, cried out to his Father in a moment of deep anguish and fatigue. In each of these instances, God did not condemn them for their weariness. Instead, he met them in their weakness and provided what they needed. It's important to understand that God does not demand that we be strong at all times. The world often tells us that we must always be strong, always push forward, always be in control. But that is not the gospel. The gospel speaks of grace. of a God who comes down into the mess of our lives, into the weariness of our souls, and offers us his presence, his strength, and his peace. Outpouring and his peace. This is not the world's way, but it is the way of God. He is the one who gives rest to the weary and strength to the weak. His heart is drawn to those who are exhausted, to those who are at the end of their own resources. When you feel like you can't go on, God's promise is not that he will remove every burden immediately, but that he will be with you in the midst of it. His presence in your exhaustion is the true source of renewal. You may not always understand why things are so difficult, or why you have to endure such a long season of weariness, but you can trust that God is using this time to refine you, to build your character, and to deepen your reliance on him. God doesn't waste your weariness. What may seem like a period of struggle is, in fact, a moment where he is doing something profound in your life. He promises that his grace is sufficient for you. When your strength is gone, his strength becomes evident. When you feel depleted, his presence fills you up. When you are tempted to believe that you are insufficient, he reminds you that in him, you are more than enough. He offers you his grace, not as a one-time fix, but as a constant, flowing source of strength. His grace empowers you to face each day, each challenge, and each moment of exhaustion with the confidence that he is with you, and his power will sustain you. There's a beauty in coming to the end of your own strength. It is in that place of vulnerability that you can truly experience God's strength. When you are forced to let go of your own self-reliance and trust completely in God's ability, that is when his power is made perfect. The Apostle Paul learned this firsthand. He prayed 3 times for God to remove a thorn from his flesh. But God's answer was, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In that moment, Paul learned that it was not in his strength that God's glory was displayed, but in his weakness. The very thing that made him feel weak and helpless became the place where God's grace shone brightest. God's invitation is clear. When you are tired, come to him. Don't try to push through on your own. Don't carry the weight of the world by yourself. Come to him, and he will give you rest. This rest is not just the absence of work or the cessation of activity. It is the deep, abiding peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that he has all power, and that he is with you every step of the way. His rest is a promise of peace for your soul, a promise that he will carry you, that he will sustain you, and that he will renew your strength. You are never alone in your weariness. God sees you, he knows you, and he is with you. Even in your most tired moments, he is present, ready to provide the strength you need to keep going. His power is made perfect in your weakness and in your exhaustion. He is your refuge.